Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys and offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by J.P. Morgan Chase, a partner in financial planning. Looking ahead to retirement, growing your business, or for commercial banking, J.P. Morgan Chase offers advice and solutions tailored to individual needs and client well-being. More information is at jpmorganchase.com. And by Luba Workers' Comp, a regional insurance carrier dedicated to providing reliable workers' compensation coverage to employers and workers in 13 states across the Southeast. With personalized service, trusted expertise, and tailored solutions, Luba helps businesses protect what matters most. Discover more at lubawc.com.
From Tsunami Sushi in downtown Lafayette, we're out to lunch with Christian Mader, editor and publisher of The Current. It's business, Acadiana style.
Welcome to Out to Lunch. I'm Christian Mader. Email has been around since the 1970s. It's quick, it's convenient, and it consumes your life. If you've got an office job, chances are you spend most of your working life inside of an inbox. And email may be the engine of modern commerce, but it also might be the slowest way to get things done these days, especially in industries where precision and timing are everything. And that's the pain point Chuck Perrett set out to solve. Chuck is the founder of Centerline, a cloud-based data management platform for the construction and architecture industry. Chuck started his tech journey as a teenager working in his family's blueprint shop and eventually launched Centerline in 2021 after seeing firsthand how digital communication was breaking down in the construction world. Centerline helps architects and contractors collaborate more effectively by ditching the messy world of long email threads. It offers project-specific communication tools, document sharing, and bid coordination all in one place. And today, Centerline serves over 75 architecture firms with 12,000 users and more than 800 projects managed through the platform. Chuck Perrett, welcome to Out to Lunch.
Thank you, Christian. Glad to be here.
If you're going to hang a shingle in the digital world, you'll need a different kind of architect, a web designer. Brandy Arnett is CEO of Vibrant Websites, a Lafayette-based web development company. And Brandy's not exactly competing with Squarespace or Wix on volume. She's competing with them on care. Vibrant builds custom websites with an emphasis on both technical precision and creative polish. She founded the company in 2019, and Brady and her team of four have launched 125 websites, and they're not just building, they're staying with their clients long after launch, offering same-day support, multiple redesigns over time. 80% of their clients are local, ranging from firms like SLEMCO to CASA to the City of Abbeville, but their reach is growing nationwide. Brandy Arnett, welcome to Out to Lunch.
Thanks for having me.
So, Chuck, email is ubiquitous, right? I feel like we could have this conversation over email, and I don't know that it's necessarily obvious to me that exchanging design iterations over email would be inefficient. Talk to me about how that clicked for you as a thing to interrupt.
Sure. Our core clients are architects, right? And I've worked with thousands of architects, and what has happened over, part of the modern iteration of running a practice is that architects go to school to learn design, and they're some of the most valuable professionals that exist in any community. They ensure that the built environment works for the people who inhabit it, right? So this is an extremely high-value profession, and there is this epidemic that exists of low-value work that is clogging up their life and keeping them from doing the things that they are uniquely professionalized at, right? So when we talk about the email has become kind of the mechanism of communication. If you're a designer, right, your idea, your work is to design, but then you have to communicate and share that information with the people who are going to build it. Email is a terrible, terrible way of trying to conduct that communication because it places a burden on the sender and the recipient to sort of document everything they've done. How many times have you ever sent an email that had any real repercussions or real consequences behind it, and then didn't immediately follow that up with a phone call, a text? Hey, did you get that? Did you open it? When are you going to look at it? What happens? And then so when we think about the built environment, we think about our these kinds of projects that may be $100,000 project that's just super critical to that to the person that's investing that money. It might be $100 million project. We can't just expect that we can continue to prop up these enormously weighted transactional communications with the same kind of tool that you might send, got it, okay. There's a tremendous difference, and and Centerline was built to separate those two.
Yeah, I guess you wouldn't imagine somebody texting the architectural design of a new building. Brandy, I mean, you guys, right? I mean, you're dealing with a local market. People, I can understand why people want to come and sort of have just a conversation with a human being, and that maybe is a valuable thing. Or maybe you're a business owner, and even sort of using sort of an out-of-the-box web development system might be a bit intimidating. But I guess I wanted to kind of get a clearer picture of who your customer is. I mean, who's the sort of person that's like not quite looking for, something that's sort of templated versus somebody who's like, man, I need something built just for me.
Sure, yeah. So we have probably a couple different avenues of client. One of them, the biggest majority of them is probably local service-based or regional service-based providers. So, attorneys and plumbers, people like that, who they don't want to have to deal, when you use something like Wix or Squarespace, you've still got to do it, right? So you've got to design it, you've got to build it, you got to make sure it exists. So those people will typically come to us because they don't have time to deal with it. They don't want to mess with it. They can't even think about what needs to be on their site or what. They just want to email us, or if you have a better method than email, I would love.
I got a feeling that Chuck still uses email.
Do you have one for web developers too? Because my goodness, we have the same problem. So they'll they just want to send it off and it get taken care of. Yeah. So it's really the personal aspect for them. Yeah. And then we also have things that are super complex that we do, right? So they're super custom. We've got, testing and inspection companies that have certificate systems for the non-destructive testing that they do. We've built the, certificate systems for them. So we've got the people that come to us for super custom,
so
right?
You guys are doing stuff that's not just, like, when I think of web development, I'm putting information about my business on a website. Like,
right.
There's a real work effect, like they're using your site like in a digital tool sort of way.
Absolutely, yeah. And like I said, there's different levels of what people need, and probably majority of what we do is, regional, or we've got a lot of clients nationwide too. So, service-based people that just, they don't want to have to, a lot of these people will start off with something like, okay, we don't need a professional to do it. We'll just, do a drag and drop builder, something like that. Yeah. And then they have a problem, like we were kind of talking about. They'll have a problem, and then it's, okay, well, who do they call? Yeah. They get on a robot chat with Wix or GoDaddy or something like that, and they're like, oh, now what? So we have a lot, that come to us for that. And then, like I said, a lot of the super custom, we don't even know where to begin. We have this thing that we need, but we don't have somebody to build it, and you certainly can't do that with Squarespace, Wix, and things like that.
So, Chuck, it sounded like Brandy was already expressing to you that maybe she could be a user of your services. I mean, explain us just kind of how it works. I mean, like the way I'm visualizing, if it helps, it's almost like a file sharing system, but I mean, it seems pretty specific to the industry. So talk us through a little bit of just how the platform works.
Sure. I mean, when we think about that experience, if we kind of go back to that, the default method for a lot of people is you email me a file, right? And I need to review it, and then I need to send you a response. So we have an acronym MESS, manual, entries and spreadsheets is how most people are managing this. It's a mess because you send me that email. Contractually, I'm obligated to return it back to you. And then I am going to take that email. I'm going to do what most architects are doing. First thing when they wake up in the morning, last thing before they go to bed, they're dragging that email into a folder on their phone or tablet. They're filing that email away so that they can save what they got. They take the attachment, they put it on a file server somewhere. And then they've got a spreadsheet that says, I got this from this person on this date, and it's due here. And then they go, and then after all that, then they get to actually go do their work. And then when they're done, they're going to do that whole process in reverse. There may be several versions of that file sitting on a file server somewhere. Then they're going to record. They're going to take the final version of that file, and then they're going to record on their little spreadsheet, hey, I'm sending this file back to this person at this time. Then they attach that file to the email and send it back to them.
Just to clear, so you're talking about these files in your mind, you're describing what I'm assuming like revisions to designs and things like that.
Sure.
Somebody says here's version timestamp to whatever.
For architects, there's two types of documents really, if we think of it in a really large way. Two types of documents. There's designs, and then there's questions about those designs.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. That
right.
Makes sense.
And then as we get into, so that can be we really focus on the way that architects communicate with their clients, communicate with contractors, the people who are going to build this stuff, and then communicate with their consultants, who are the teams of other professionals that work with the architect, that collaborate with the architect to actually complete the design. Architects are sort of the quarterback, but there's a lot of specialty players that are also on the team that build anything.
So is the platform, if I were to subscribe to the service or something like that, I mean, is it the experience like, a Slack channel with, a folder in it? I mean, I'm trying to look. We're on radio, so it's hard to see. But trying to get a visual image in my head of what it actually looks like. I mean,
sure, you can go to Centerline.co and see some of those images. But I will tell you, so what we're doing is we're automating all of that recording that's happening. Then on top of that, we're going to organize that information in a logical way that aligns perfectly with the way that architects think about project management.
Sure.
So a typical project is going to go from design through a bidding and procurement phase, then into construction, and then as we get to the end of construction, we go into something that they call closeout, right? Centerline is going to take all of the administrative work that just is involved in those, both the sharing of design and then also the collaborative, conversational correspondence that happens around questions and iterations of that design. We're going to manage all the versions of that, and then, like I say, just kind of organize it. So right now, that spreadsheet that you're automatically doing, right? We're going to that spreadsheet that you're manually updating, Centerline just automatically is going to record all that stuff. What came in? What is it pertaining to? Who got it? When did they get it? And then every time, because it's a web platform, right? Like every time someone logs in, we know who you are. We know what company you're from. We're going to record the date and time and the action that you take every time you interact with it. So there's never an opportunity for we dramatically minimize the risk of a miscommunication or the fallout that happens when things get missed and when things are not done on schedule.
Yeah, I would assume that this really helps with, just keeping logs of what happened and when and sort of quality control kind of things. I mean, the way you're describing sort of the iterative process in architecture, right, and how it would work within this web platform, I would think that communication becomes a real skill set in the design world, right?
Yeah.
The web design world,
Yeah.
because
Do you have a web developer version that you can license
and
to
can
me?
she have it right now? Yeah.
I mean, right? Like, I mean, we're so that is
'Cause
the
it's the
other
same thing, right? I mean, essentially, we're sending designs back and forth. We're getting
Absolutely.
approvals
Brandy,
back and
are you
forth.
often? I mean, I would think like it's the rare case that you're sitting with a client in a physical place and
Right.
saying, "Hey, here's version 1.0."
Right.
What do
Maybe
you think?
once in the project do we meet
Yeah.
in person. Otherwise, it's through email and
this
other digital
happens
communications.
this is happening all over. This is modern life.
Yeah.
Right. For any business, this is modern life. I am hyper focused on architects.
Yeah.
And so what we have done is we've taken this super narrow little niche of professionals that is out there in the world, and just because of the 25 years that I've worked with thousands of architects on, I can't tell you how many thousands of projects,
Yeah.
right? Like, I am just an enormous fan of the work that they do, and then B, respect that work, and there's a mission for me that's part of Centerline that's about, like, we need high value people doing high value work, and I can build a tool that can relieve those high value people of doing this kind of where most of their day. You talk, most of the architects that are going to be listening to this today are, I promise you, nodding their head right now, because most of their day is not about architecture.
Yeah.
It's about menial tasks of reading, checking, tracking, sharing.
Yeah.
And Centerline is out to help that.
You're listening to Out to Lunch. I'm Christian Mader. I'm talking with Chuck Corrett, founder of Centerline, and Brandy Arnett, founder of My Rent Websites. Yeah, Brandy, it strikes me that, thinking about some of the clientele that you have, right, like a challenge of breaking into that market is going to be some level of just inertia, right?
Yeah.
Like, people get a website, it works good enough.
Right.
And then they're sort of like, this is the challenge point I need to reach to be like, I need a professional, right?
Sure.
Somebody call a professional. I mean, talk to us a little bit about that process of sort of hanging your own shingle in this environment where, your portfolio is the work that you need to do, but at the same time, you're trying to build custom stuff. I mean, how do you attract, say, an institutional client? Like, I would imagine you described some of the sort of very industry-specific kinds of needs that some of your clients would have. I would think a client like SLEMCO, for instance, would have very specific sets of things that aren't just like
Sure.
putting words on the internet.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you build it by doing good work,
Yep.
and those people going and tell, hey, you had a problem. Our biggest source of new sites is referrals, right? So one thing that's really important for us is the service after a site is launched. So honestly, some of our biggest advocates are clients that have been with us the longest, because they can speak to how well they're supported after a site's live. So pretty much anyone who's ever messed with a website on their own or with a professional has had some type of pain point with it, either dealing with it on their own or dealing with a service provider that really, after the site was live, kind of just dropped them. So it's really not hard to find the clients. It's like, oh, my site needs to be updated because it doesn't look good and we had bad service. Is usually we pretty much always get everything because they had a bad experience, whether that was doing it themselves or, with someone else. So, it's once you do one, then they talk about it to someone else. And if you can get a few good ones, then those people are usually, have friends with other business owners. And then outside of that, we build for some agencies as well. So those agencies, once they, have a good experience with us, they send us other things. And so it kind of just has snowballed like that.
Well, how much is, I'm sorry, go ahead, Chuck.
No, I was just going to say, I've one of the things when you were talking about building like the inspection certificate, features for the testing companies, when you get into that world, and I'm in this world as well, where I'm building a tool for a professional to automate or make a part of their job more efficient, then you can start to ask questions, right? Which is like, for us, we found that architects who use Centerline complete their project administration tasks in 50% less time. And that translates for an average firm into about 25 hours a week. 25 hours a week of staff time that we can put back into the hands of our clients. That means either they get the mythical 40-hour work week, which is amazing, right? Like, so we get quality of life benefits for the people who use it, or we can start to say, like, well, you know, you bill your staff's time. If you're a principal at an architecture firm, you own the testing company, you bill your staff's time at $120, $140 an hour, right? How did they make those testing reports before? Right. And how much time does this save them when they can just do it right through the tool that we make for you? And so then you start to say, well, okay, what do you do with that time? Right? And how many, could you get one more project because your inspectors are now able to do a report in the field?
Right.
And that's what's going on with Centerline as well.
There's this level where people go from needing, you know, a tool within a website platform to needing custom software development. And that's kind of where we break off. We don't do, you know, we're not building apps. We're not, you know, doing that kind of thing. But there's a gap between, okay, I have this process that I need to build something for. I can't go drop $60,000 on getting an app developed for my certificates for our testing to be generated. But you know, looking for that piece in between. And so we come in a lot, you know, where the piece between needing a software written for them, where it's like, I'm gonna have to go get investors for this, and we don't need it that much, you know. But yet doing the certs on paper, you know, it's 2025, they're not going to do that, you know. Right. So we find ourselves a lot in that in between there, you know, as well with the super custom stuff.
So
know.
You guys are building a lot of stuff on WordPress, which, if you know, folks aren't generally familiar with, is like a kind of a essentially a language, right, that people use, a platform itself that used to build websites. You know, WordPress is very powerful. It powers a lot of the internet, but in and of itself, it's kind of a vendor in its own right. So, like, I guess I'm curious, like, how much of what you have to do ends up being sort of dependent on other types of providers? Like, you're talking about this really interesting gap, right?
Yeah.
You might go to that client and say, well, you know, you could subscribe to this, you know, other platform, right? And I can plug it into WordPress, and then you got to figure out whether you can maintain and update it. I mean, like, to what extent are you having to balance code that somebody else has written, but your expertise is just kind of understanding where that code applies?
Yeah, so it kind of depends on what the industry is. So, you know, if you have something super specialized like an architect, that there's already software that exists for the thing that they're trying to do, maybe we just integrate it with their website, right? So there's a software with a portal that already exists that does that very specific thing. Within their website, we just kind of build that portal, you know, a link out to it. But in the instance of things like, you know, the non-destructive testing, they're really looking for like a data transfer back and forth, and building something that's easy to use and that's not super bloated with a bunch of other stuff that they don't need. So we can do things that are super focused for people with not a lot of bloat, and we do rely on some third-party software sometimes for things, but we build a lot of like custom widgets for people. So if there's like a data that they need a custom, you know, form or structure or thing like that for, we'll build out that system, and then they can transfer that back and forth. And, you know, things like there's a new food truck park downtown, Uncle Bob's Roundup. They are a client of ours. He has a vendor booking system that we've built out for him. That's an instance where Airbnb booking exists, right? There's a million booking platforms that you can use to book a space somewhere. Well, the way that theirs works is he's got a certain amount of spots available, but he can only have a certain amount of trucks in each spot, but depending on the size of the trucks depends on if a spot can be booked or not. you can't find that type of booking requirement solved in a booking software. So you could say, I have 5 spots to sell for a truck this weekend, and people can book all 5, but what if the truck is 40 feet long instead of 20 feet long? Well, that's going to take up 2 spots, not 1 spot. So what we built him is a booking software that essentially works like an Airbnb type thing, but it works on the parameters of, if this vendor's truck is this long, it takes up this amount of space, 2 spots are booked. You know, so you have things like that where people have a business model that doesn't quite fit in what's available. And so he has, you know, this custom built portal where vendors can go and log in and book their spots. And then they've got, you know, they also submit all of their public facing information with their menus and all that kind of things. And based on their bookings, it shows them on the site and things like that. So you've got, you know, that situation a lot where what exists doesn't quite meet
Sounds like
people's
you're
needs.
building a tool like you, Chuck.
I
Yes.
love the notion of like seeing the opportunity in creating a bespoke experience
Right.
for a specific customer.
Right.
Right. You know, and that really, there's so much value that is out there in the world, because what we have is the internet, the modern commerce, and AI is making this worse, not better, is just a ton of junky applications that are out there
Right.
that have, you know, like that either come with a million features
Right.
that are overwhelming for our users, right? Or don't do the specific thing I need it to do. I just want this.
Right.
And so there's this ethos. I think I think there are billions of dollars out there, and it's all going to come from local entrepreneurship who identifies the need and marries a local specific need to available technology.
Right.
Right. You know,
Right.
that was the ethos behind Centerline from the beginning, was like, there's a ton of tools out there that have been marketed at architects to manage their projects. But what happens is they're written by software developers who just sort of imagine, like they read some stuff and they say, oh, well, it has to do this, and it has to do this, and it has to do this, and architects do this, and this, and this, and this, and this. And I came into it from a real practical, boots on the ground experience of doing document management in our industry, and realized that, like, no, this is actually a very clean, simple process. At the core of it, when you strip
Right.
it away, you just need something that does this and this and this. And so, you know, we built Centerline and I think part of the response that we've had from architects has been, this is simple, this is so organized, this is exactly how our projects work.
Right.
And so it's like, when you can deliver that experience that is specific to a given, you know, market,
Right.
need, niche, that really, that's our goal as entrepreneurs,
And
is just finding it.
And because we're doing it in the framework of a website, right, they're not, like you said, it's usually this one thing that they need to do. It's a couple things that they need to do. But to go out and get a software developed for that, like, that's not realistic for a lot of businesses. Or you have, you know, a startup that's got an idea and they need to get something going, but they can't go invest all that money in having a software developed for that. With using the framework of the website and how we can build within that, we can offer basically that tailored solution to any type of industry for any type of need, you know. And so it's, okay, well, what do you need, and we can build it for you. Well, what do you do? Well, we do whatever you need, you know. So
it's interesting. It always starts with the smart question and a good conversation. And I think, you know, I feel like I'm not making this up, but I believe the saying is, you know, that simplicity is the essence of good design. Chuck, Brandy, thank you so much for joining me on Out to Lunch Acadiana.
thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
My guests on Out to Lunch Acadiana today have been Chuck Perrette, founder of Centerline, and Brandy Arnett, founder and CEO of Vibrant Websites. We edited this conversation to fit into our time slot here on KRBS. You can hear our unedited conversation and find out more about Chuck and Brandy by listening to the Out to Lunch Acadiana podcast. You can find and subscribe on your podcast app and on our website. It's acadiana.com. And if you want to know what we all look like, find photos from the show on it'sacadiana.com and on our Out to Lunch Acadiana social media. These photos were taken by Astor Morgan, and you can find more of Astor's photos at astormorgan.com. Out to Lunch Acadiana is a production of I&O Broadcasting for it'sacadiana.com and KRVS 88.7 FM. The producer of our show is Grant Morris. Our technical producer is Eric Merle. Our associate producer is Chad Terrio. Our researcher is Leah Urdialis. And today's show was engineered by Dylan Babineau. I'm Christian Mader, the editor of The Current, Lafayette's nonprofit newsroom. And to get the scoop on Lafayette, head over to thecurrentla.com. Sign up for our free newsletter. We'll see you next time for more business and conversation on Out to Lunch Acadiana. See you next time.
Out to Lunch Acadiana was recorded live over lunch at Tsunami Sushi on Jefferson Street in downtown Lafayette. Tsunami is open Tuesday through Saturday for lunch and dinner, serving sushi, sashimi, salads, and authentic Japanese grilled dishes. Tsunami welcomes casual dining or reservations. More information at servingsushi.com. Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker. Established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys and offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by JP Morgan Chase, a partner in financial planning. Looking ahead to retirement, growing your business, or for commercial banking, JP Morgan Chase offers advice and solutions tailored to individual needs and client well-being. More information is at jpmorganchase.com. And by Luba Workers' Comp, a regional insurance carrier dedicated to providing reliable workers' compensation coverage to employers and workers in 13 states across the Southeast. With personalized service, trusted expertise, and tailored solutions, Luba helps businesses protect what matters most. Discover more at lubawc.com. Mitchell Foreman wrote and performs all the music on Out to Lunch. You can hear Mitchell's music anywhere great jazz is sold or streamed, and at mitchellforeman.com.